a lot of recent support, so he's a very, very good rogue deck right now. Moneta being a very good defensive deck. I think everything else on this makes a whole lot of sense, right?
Yeah.
But enough of the breakdown. It's time to get into this exciting round itself. We got Zach Richards on Kirishima 2, and then we have... That's Jose, right? On Kamui?
Yeah, I believe it's Andrew Duvall playing Kirishima 2,
Okay.
and Jose Narono playing Kamui Woods.
Okay. Yeah, I recognize Jose's hands, and then I was like, maybe everything's a little off here. Yeah, so we've got Andrew Duvall of PPG fame, right, against Jose, of course, the champion of the Unfun Stuff brand, our two-time regional winner. You cannot go wrong with Jose here, one of the most notable members of our community, and just a very, very, very solid matchup here, right? I mean, Kirishima and Kamui Woods, both very strong characters right now. Probably going to be playing both very similar decks here, right, on the Earth symbol, right? Mm-hmm. So immediately we're seeing the Season the Advantage shenanigans happening right away into this hardened jab. This, of course, being the strong combo of Season the Advantage under the Earth symbol, being able to pick it right back up and play it again on your next one, and just negate your opponent's entire stage relevance.
Yeah, I think it's going to be super interesting that you'll definitely see a lot of the same cards, right? You expect to see a lot of the Kirishima attacks, one with natures, stuff like that. But I don't think these decks are going to be playing very similarly at all, because Kamui Woods does a lot of blocking early, does a lot of good stuff with those blocks, gets rewarded for blocking. And Kirishima, on the other hand, he's probably going to block one attack and then face tank the rest. But here we go. Here is the second Season the Advantage.
The loops. Here they are. That Season the Advantage just keep coming back around.
Ooh.
Already seen some interesting tech here on both sides, actually. Jose slimming down this rapid punches is very, very interesting. And then on Andrew's side of the board, we've seen him check a high engine kick there and a Hellflame Stomp, I believe is the name of the Endeavor kick from the starter deck. So, again, some really interesting tech right away on both of those ends. And another high engine kick. I wonder if this is maybe more of like an Earth Kicks type of build. Maybe because we've got a bunch of high engines in here. Hardened Frenzy is a kick. Maybe we've even got some Recipro Excels in here as well.
Yeah, if you got a chance to peek at the deck list online, it was shared that basically a kicks build won down in Florida for a provisional store championship. Andrew Duvall managed to go down to Miami, take a build that I don't think too many people were apt for, we're testing against, and basically run out like an Earth kicks build. So
that's very interesting. You said Florida. Might that be the Unfun Stuff provisional?
Yes, indeed it was. And it's going to be really interesting to see. I don't think people are... We talked about it earlier with Phil Birch's deck with the Seizing the Advantage, giving this speed that the deck didn't have before. Well, that's all the Earth kicks do, right? Like acceleration kick, high engine kick. Those are both some of the fastest attacks in our game. So really shoring up the offense for Kirishima's lineup. And we said it. Here it is again. Seizing the Advantage.
So much advantage being seized. So this is very interesting. It almost creates a very, very cool narrative actually about this matchup. We've got the outsider of Unfun Stuff who came in and won their provisional with this same deck against Unfun Stuff's champion Jose itself. So this is almost like a chance for redemption for Unfun to claim their crown back from Andrew coming in and taking down their provisional.
Yeah, I think one of the things that really gets, I guess, kind of glossed over is Hardened Frenzy is when people were playing like the only punches decks, Hardened Frenzy was like the one kick you would slide into it, right? It was always the attack that was so good you could pretty much just jam it into any lineup. And now we're going to see a deck that synergizes really well with one of the best attacks that typically you're not allowed to block.
Right. Right, and so we saw the half block come down on the Hardened Frenzy, so that it does not build itself down. The high engine kick's coming in now. This is probably going to be pretty unblockable, given the state of Jose's very committed out board. And there was the Excel kick being checked as well.
Yeah, you talked about the partial block on that. Like, it's not good typically to partial block many attacks, and you definitely don't want to be partial blocking opening attacks. However, Kamui Woods gets a little bit of leeway with that, right? With the enhance for the minus damage and readying himself, you kind of are allowed to get away with those plays a bit more.
For sure, absolutely. And even though you have to take a little bit of damage on the chin from that half block, given that block is committing Jose out, you really cannot allow Andrew to build it down and clear his card pool because there's just a high likelihood that he's able to find game on that turn. Jose escapes with only 11 health, still not a fantastic position to be in.
But that could have been much worse. You talk about being committed out. I was afraid for his life there. We had plenty of foundations as a Kirishima to play one or two more attacks, especially if they are the ramping ones, but that's what the kick lineup misses. It misses that extra ramp from all of the, unconditional ramp, like the frenzy. If you don't completely block it, it doesn't ramp you. And so maybe we're not going to have like that crazy extra resources like we saw from Phil Birch in round 1.
Correct. I've seen a lot of interesting tech in Andrew's foundation lineup as well. Right away, Revel at his masterpiece is a really interesting include. Makes sense though. Your kicks are all very fast. We want to put some damage on them, so makes sense. Just interesting to see. And the super region as well in Andrew's deck. I've seen a lot of Earth players, especially the Kirishima players, kind of gravitate away towards cards like super region, which I think is very interesting. Honestly, I think that card is very, very powerful.
Yeah, Andrew choosing not to block so we can draw from Homage to My Hero. After you take damage from an unblocked attack, you just get to draw one card. So definitely a big part of the Kirishima game plan. We saw Phil go down to like potentially no cards because you get to draw more with Kirishima. He's got his own foundation to draw cards.
Yep, of course. That card will not be drawing any more cards for the rest of the game because the season the advantage play coming in once more. This is really just a season the advantage heavy matchup right here. Obviously, I think any deck. Oh, yep, there it goes. I think any deck on any of this. I think we should probably talk about this card a little bit because I think this card got revealed. People were like, this card seems very, very solid. I like it. And then the more I playtested the card, the more I read it and really looked at it, I just kind of was like, I think this card is just everywhere.
Meta-defining.
Meta-defining. I slowly came under the suspicion that every symbol on that card would pretty much unconditionally 4x this card because of just how powerful and how much impact it has for very, very little cost. Like, technically, no cost, really. The card is kind of all benefit, quite frankly. And
the +1 difficulty that you add to playing the attack, immediately refunded by building it.
Yeah.
And if you check well, it's just a bonus.
Yeah, it's almost like a frog lashing syndrome, right? If you continue to check well, you actually go plus in foundations. You get to flip your opponent's things with no interaction between the two of you at an instant speed. It's very, very, very strong.
Speaking of plus foundations, we are starting to see these stages get pretty big. These players kind of go in a tit for tat here, seeing a little more blocking than you might necessarily think from a Kirishima 2, but Kamui Woods can really start ramping up that damage. It's not wise to let your health total drop super low.
Absolutely. And once more, the season the advantage is coming. I mean, Kirishima is a guy that goes through 8 cards a turn, so you're going to find those season the advantages pretty fluently.
And we have great ways to recycle it. We've got ways to destroy it, so we can get it back after we cycle our deck. I want to ask you real quick, Levi, what do you think the over/under on face downs in our stage is going to be for both players?
Oh my goodness, an unprecedented amount, and it's just going to keep changing, right? Because we're destroying them and then rebuilding new ones, and then it's going to be ridiculous by the end of it. But we're also seeing Jose boldly shred into deadlock, which, I mean, he's pretty safe to do. We talked about this earlier. But again, their main equalizer is pull no punches as the earth symbol's deadlock. But we're not playing a punch deck as Andrew here, so we don't have to fear a pull no punches at any point in time of the game.
Yeah, we've only seen, I think, a hardened chop and a hardened jab as far as punches go.
Correct. So the only real thing we have to worry about aside from that is snack time. And currently, as Jose, we're sporting that card. So we actually have the deadlock threat as well as the deadlock state.
And with all the seasoning the advantage going around, snack time's cost to flip a foundation for that deadlock, probably not going to be online for very long.
Also very true. Also, our deadlock threats might not stick around as those foundations because seasoning the advantage is going to come in and start flipping them, right?
Yeah, this is such a back and forth game. you know, from the earlier matchups, we've had these really blazing fast, not just decks, but the players, right? Like the pace at which, you know, Ben was playing at, the pace at which Phil was playing at, like all extremely fast. And these players are playing fast themselves, but their decks are just a little bit slower, right?
Yeah, their decks are definitely chugging along. We're not going to see anyone fall to lethal too fast when these guys are playing these really thick characters or defensive bases. I mean, Earth is just such a defensive symbol. Earth has so much defense built into it right now.
And we're going way into deadlock at this point. And I just want to point out, petty squabbles, probably the reason to play Kamui Woods over Kirishima right now.
Absolutely. The tech you get out of Petty Squabble as Kamui is very strong on the Earth symbol. It's just such a negligible cost for being able to cycle your hand like that, filter your cards, mess up your opponent's blocks they're holding. A lot of really strong things going on in there. And so we're going to continue to strut more and more into deadlock. I will say the only thing we actually have to fear is we're talking about deadlock threats that come out of nowhere. Prehensile Tail, right, is on Andrew's board.
Yeah, It's funny you mentioned that because we talked about how many face downs you can actually generate. This is a card that kind of came in late for my testing. It's a card that I didn't value pretty much at all at first, was not including it. And then I realized 4 foundations face down, including itself, not a tough task, and it's just strictly faster than a card like Celebrity Status. So
absolutely,
it's a little higher difficulty, but it's way harder to disrupt. It's way harder to kind of interact with. But before we get too far away, I did want to mention the biggest thing on Petty Squabbles in Kamui specifically, right? You have to commit your character for cost. It's a character that readies.
Yep.
And so this is a card that can potentially draw you 2 cards if you have no cards in hand, similar to the Kirishima style. So this could be an incredible war of resources between 2 decks that just have access to 8, 10, possibly more cards on a turn cycle.
Yeah, the second Jose is able to put Andrew in a position where he has to start blocking his attacks and let Kamui ready every single time, we're just going to discard 2, draw 2 on every single attack. And it's going to get out of hand very, very fast. We're going to find every single attack in our deck. So that's kind of like the clock scenario that I think Jose feels like he might be putting Andrew in. At the same time, though, as long as we're sitting in deadlock, Prehensile Tail is going to be very, very strong, being able to give 3 damage and throw to any of our attacks. I have to hope, as Jose, we might be holding on to something like a Faith Shield, or maybe it's in our sideboard if we continue to play this deadlock game plan. Prehensile Tail has the ability to be a very, very relevant card for the rest of this match. I mean, Jose's already at only 11 health. You know, making a couple 5, 6, 7 damage throws. It's you've only got a few turns at that point to close this out.
Yeah, you only get at most 4 Faith Shields. To play the response, you have to remove it from the game. You don't get to recycle that card to live forever. So it'll be interesting to see when. Oh, it looks like we did just commit it now, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's zero reason not to. As Andrew here now, my game plan is simply play 1 move and Prehensile Tail it, and then build to survive forever every single turn.
Yep, and we do not have the Faith Shield coming out immediately, so we are going to be taking a little bit of extra damage, you know, a little damage we shouldn't be taking normally, but because we are not afraid of the deadlock threat that wasn't on board at the time,
correct,
we are now going to be in a war of attrition, and Andrew has presented the clock. It is
correct.
Up to Jose to respond. Oh, and a second Prehensile.
A second Prehensile Tail is absolutely massive, and the double Chivalrous Competitor, meaning our Prehensile Tails can no longer be flipped by Apathetic and seizing the advantage. This is a really hard game state for Jose to be in now.
Yeah, it looks like Andrew came ready for the deadlock, right? We talked about Earth having like so deadlock threats, and you nailed it. He's got the best ones.
Yeah, this is the all-star right here, especially against the slim health, block-happy Kamui character. This is really hard for Jose to be in. We really only have, to be frank, I think Jose has to close the game this turn.
Or start drawing a bunch of Face Shields, but
yeah,
we do have the Petty Squabble, which means as soon as we use 1 Prehensile Tail, we get to discard and commit 1, but that becomes taxing, right? That becomes
correct.
Its own sort of clock. when we start using the squabbles and discarding our hand, and then we're drawing random cards, yes, we get a ton of cards, but they have to be Faith Shields. And
I actually don't think that we have Faith Shields in Jose's main deck right here.
I haven't
Because
seen
we just
one yet.
cycled, and I haven't not. Yeah, you're right. I have not seen them either.
That new training method being on board means if we check one, we do get to scoop it up, but we gotta see it soon.
That's
don't
very
we?
true. Now, I will say, in the interest of closing the game this turn, we do have, like we said, these petty squabbles to draw through our whole deck. If we can start raiding Kamui, and we've got snack time, deadlock in hands to flip and draw, right?
And
So-
we're about to get 2 of our flipped foundations back, so apathetic. We might be chewing through some of these chivalrous now.
Okay, yeah. I mean, if we cannot close things out this turn, we've got to start going through them, right? So double apathetic is going to be huge here. We're going to get through both of the chivalrous competitors. Then at that point, we just have to start finding our season the advantages again, right? I mean, this is one of the strongest applications, is that season the advantage is, there's not like a remove cost or anything on that card. It builds itself face down, sure, but you can destroy it and find its way back into your deck at some point.
It has almost the opposite of a cost.
Yeah.
The cost would be to build a foundation, please and thank you.
Absolutely. And then you tell me at some point I can blow it up and get it back into my deck. I wonder who's going to trigger more season the advantages this whole round.
Ooh, yeah, that would be a stat to keep track of.
That would be a very entertaining stat to keep track of. I would love to see who's played more season the advantages at the end of the round, and how many more than 4 it is.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. We're not too deep into the round, still in game 1, but I feel like these players on turn 8, turn 9 already.
Yeah. I mean, we've been playing some very, very fast cutthroat turns. So we got the Kamui going in for the +1 damage over time. So we're gonna get to ready him now. So we're not diving